Doing this for a few years now, haven't we?
Yes, we have, and it's great to see everybody back here again. I'm Alia Tuqan.
And I'm Wajih Halawa.
We'll be your MCs for the next couple of days. Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, welcome again to the MENA ICT Forum 2014. This year's forum is held under the royal patronage of His Majesty King Abdullah. It is organized by the Information Communications Technology Association of Jordan Intaj and the Ministry of ICT. In line with His Majesty the King's vision of establishing Jordan as a regional hub and boosting global presence, the conference this year, dubbed MENA ICT Forum 2014 Disruptive Technologies, will discuss technology advances that will improve life, business, and the economy, as well as the potential of technologies to alter the way people live and work. Experts over the next 2 days will address industry concerns, facilitate opportunities to establish partnerships with global stakeholders, and host activities on the sidelines of the forum, such as the Entrepreneurship Cafe by Oasis 500, Games Meetup by the Gaming Lab, the App Challenge by King Abdullah Fund for Development, Catalyzing Conversations by Endeavor Jordan, Mix and Mentor by WAMDA, and the Amman TT Forum Edition.
Yes, indeed, Alia. So lots of things going on over the next couple of days, and make sure to get your share of those. Now, just a few points before we have our first speaker for this morning. During the course of this hour, Their Majesties King Abdullah II and Queen Rania Al Abdullah will be honoring us with their arrival. So we therefore ask that you remain here in this auditorium. Access in and out will be restricted very shortly. And of course, I bumped into someone outside who looked at me and said, "You were that guy who kept interrupting the sessions whenever they went over time. Are you going to do that again?" And I looked at him like, "Yeah." So yes, we are running on a really tight clock and we're already about 30 minutes behind. For all the speakers, moderators, we urge you to sort of watch the clock and try to keep things on time. We have coffee breaks and lunch. We don't have a designated lunch session, but what you can do is kind of grab and go from the food and beverage areas designated. Be sure to check your form packs for information about parallel sessions and their locations in and around this building. And of course, download the mobile app for the MENA ICT Forum 2014, which is easily searchable on the Apple and Android app stores. And now, please welcome our host, Jawad Abbasi, the chairman of the Information and Communications Technology Association of Jordan, Intaj. Jawad.
Good morning. Thank you for being here, taking the time to be in beautiful Amman, Jordan. And welcome to the 7th MENA ICT Forum. It has been 14 years since we started doing this regional conference in Amman, Jordan. Jordan's ICT sector is very proud to have the unwavering and continuous support of His Majesty King Abdullah II. On behalf of Intaj and all the sector, allow me to extend a warm thank you to His Majesty. I'd also like to thank our partners, King Abdullah Fund for Development, King Hussein Business Park, and the Ministry in making this event a success. This year's ICT Forum focuses on the growing role of ICT in transforming life modes, business models, economies, and societies at large. The overarching theme is disruptive technologies. Examples of disruptive technologies that will be featured and discussed at the MENA ICT Forum and its parallel activities include the Internet of Things and its implications and applications in wearable technology, big data and cloud computing, massive open online courses, connected healthcare, smart machines, smart cities and clean tech, e-payment, mobile payment, and bitcoins and payments in banking, crowdfunding and investment, and smart government and government services. All of these technological advances bear opportunities for Jordan and the wider Arab world. With a collective GDP of $2.85 trillion US, a population of 370 million people, half of whom are under 25 years of age, the region has great potential. Over the past 5 years, the regional levels of connectivity have been increasing substantially. Between 2007 and 2013, internet penetration in the region jumped by threefold, 294% to be exact. Mobile data traffic grew by 107% in 2013 alone. With higher rates of connectivity, entrepreneurial activity, and easy access to technologies, a small business can become an instant multinational operation targeting global markets. Jordan naturally glows as one of the regional hubs for innovation, disruptive technologies, and growth. In Jordan, we have a vibrant technology entrepreneurship ecosystem. We have mobile money and electronic bill payments already available. We have mobile broadband and introductions of 4G mobile broadband. And we have new e-government projects that should enable new businesses and business models to enhance economic growth and job creation in the country. Of course, we must remain vigilant that investments in mobile broadband have to be profitable, to be sustainable, and offer good returns on investment for their investors. Frankly, I expected a higher podium. Jordan's technology scene remains thriving. It encompasses good universities, technology companies, global technology vendors, investors and venture capital funds, accelerators and incubators, mentorship programs, and tech community groups. A stroll around the King Hussein Business Park gives a real taste of what Jordan has to offer. I would also like to highlight that the ICT ecosystem in Jordan has created a complementary role between regional technology centers. For example, Cisco's regional headquarters overseeing the whole of the region is in Dubai, but Cisco's large technical support center with over 200 engineers is based in Amman, Jordan. A key ingredient to a vibrant technology ecosystem, of course, is accelerators and incubators in Jordan. We have Oasis 500, iPark, Omnia's Plug and Play, Zain's 500 startups partnerships, and these are all showing greater foreign investment interest in Jordan and the region at large. Furthermore, Jordan rank in the Global Information Technology Report has gone up to 44 from 47, despite the increase in the number of countries from 144, covered by that index from 144 to 148. And one final thank you to all of our partners before we begin our MENA ICT Forum. I would like to thank again the Ministry of ICT, King Abdullah Fund for Development and King Hussein Business Park, USAID Jordan Competitiveness Program, and the USAID and Jordan US Embassy, Zain Jordan, Omnia and Orange, MENA ICT, Showman Foundation, Sajilni, Arabia Cell, Ipsos, Royal Jordanian, and the community partners of Oasis 500, WAMDA, iMENA, Gaming Lab and Jordan Gaming Task Force, iPark, Endeavor, Amman TT, Joe Animate, All World Network, and Arabia 500. And of course, our social media ambassadors and offline and online media partners. Also, on behalf of Intaj and Intaj Board, I would like to thank sincerely our outgoing CEO, Mr. Abid Shamlawi, and welcome Mr. Khalid Hudhud, the new CEO of Intaj that has begun his tenure this week. So welcome to Jordan and welcome to the MENA ICT Forum 2014. Have a good conference.
Thank you, Jawad. Next, we welcome our co-host, His Excellency Dr. Azam Slade, Minister of Information and Communications Technology. Your Excellency.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على سيدي محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the third MENA ICT Forum hosted by the Hashemite Kingdom of Jordan. It gives me great pleasure that so many of you have taken the time and effort and traveled to be among us today, which serves as an indicator as to how important this forum has become over the past years. The third MENA ICT Forum comes after a series of successful events, starting with the Jordan ICT Forums during the years 2002-2006 to the extended version of the MENA ICT Forums in 2010 and 2013. Our dialogue has also evolved from what could be tomorrow's opportunities to capturing the outcomes of the Arab ICT Spring to our forum's theme for this year, Disruptive Technologies, the new way for doing things. The technological advances that we have seen during the past 3 decades are things that we only imagined as part of science fiction, movies, and novels. Now, as the future of technology, the sky is the limit in what we will find to be produced. And in the middle of all what is going on, we may find that there are ways in which technology is going to use us as a guide as to where to go and what to do. On its own, innovation is not enough to be considered disruptive. There needs to be cost-benefit analysis before any new technology can have a significant impact. Only when the value of technology surpasses the value of a competing market does it officially become what we can call a disruptive trend. According to the Computer World's Forecast 2014 survey of 221 IT executives, in the next 3 to 5 years, the 5 technologies most likely to upset the status quo are social networking, cloud computing and software as a service, mobility and e-payment, predictive analytics, and big and open data. Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, social media and social networking technologies are both disruptive technologies. Social media allows its users to control how a message is created, viewed, and interacted upon by others. For years, telecommunications, publishing, broadcasting, and newspaper businesses were gatekeepers and controllers of corporate and individual messages. Now, many people and businesses develop and amplify their own messages with social media technology. The internet was originally designed to be a way to communicate quickly, easily, and cheaply with others. However, Facebook and others pushed the boundaries of the internet's disruption and extended the technology to allow users to build an online community, one that not just allows users to communicate, but has the potential to engage with all users in the online space. Today, the buzzword is engagement, not just communication. Web services using cloud computing is also known as rapidly aligned business deployments of software as a service. Instead of organizational budgets being bogged down by technical infrastructure, IT project overruns, high-cost help desks, and data integration and backups, new resources may be freed up to focus on the actual mission of the business. Software as a service allows CIOs or business units to buy web services on demand and by the user seat. No longer limited to a single application, software as a service is now available to full-blown enterprise resource planning applications. Last June, Jordan launched the first national cloud in the region, which is located in the National Information Technology Center and linked to over 90 government entities via a secured private cloud. Mobile devices have changed the way people access digital content. Smartphones and tablets have brought rich digital content to the fingertips of consumers. Mobile banking has emerged as one of the most innovative products in the financial services industry. Shoppers are increasingly using their mobile devices for everything from browsing to comparing to buying products. Governments are also reaching out to their citizens using mobile devices as efficient channel. Enterprises must also ensure that their applications are mobile ready. Globally, tablet use has increased drastically. According to the International Data Corporation, IDC, the number of PCs will fall from 28.7% of the devices on the market in 2013 to 13% in 2017. Tablets will increase from 11.8% to 16.5% by 2017. And smartphones will increase from 59.5% to 70.5%. In Jordan, mobile phone penetration rate has exceeded 142% in 2013. More than 52.3% of Jordanian families own at least one smartphone. At least one telecom operator will deploy 4G technologies before the end of 2014. In April, the Central Bank of Jordan launched e-Fawatircom service using the second government network. The service allows beneficiaries to pay utilities, education, healthcare, and other bills. Those with bank accounts will be able to see their bills the moment they are issued and can settle them online immediately. According to the latest published Global Information Technology Report, JITR 2014, Jordan ranked 44 out of 148 countries around the world. Every year, companies and individuals generate billions of gigabytes of data. Data which is properly analyzed and used in time can emerge as unbeatable competitive advantage. Enterprises need to recognize the prospect big data represents and should adapt their IT strategies to capture opportunities. The National E-Government Program in the Ministry of Information and Communications Technology includes open data initiatives as part of the e-transformation to avail services to government beneficiaries through a one-stop shop venue within the National Smart Portal, while working diligently with other partners and agencies to enhance processes and services. The ICT sector contributes by 12.8% of the annual GDP of Jordan. There are 30 public and private universities in Jordan which proudly add about 6,000 professionals to the ICT labor force every year. I would like to call upon all academic and research institutions in Jordan and the MENA region to give disruptive technology the attention that it deserves and to work closely with the private and public sector for the betterment of Jordan and the rest of the region. I'm sure that this forum, its discussions and outcomes will serve as an important guide for unlocking the potentials of ICT in the region as a whole. I would like to thank Intaj, partners and sponsors for their participation and hard work for this conference. Once again, I welcome you all, wishing you pleasant time in Jordan and success in your sessions. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Okay, so it is time to get into the guts of things. The word of the day is disruption, right? I remember an ad agency once talk about recruiting people who are disruptive. It makes for a very messy office, I can tell you that. The point is, this is a really overused word, and we have to really figure out what it is that we're talking about here. Let's listen to the CEO of Google, Eric Schmidt, talk to us about disruptive technology.
The screen that you want to apply about technology is not what technologies are interesting, because there's so many that are interesting. You want to look at which ones have a chance of having a volume impact on many, many people or large segments of the society. We're going in a single lifetime from a small elite having access to information to essentially everyone in the world having access to all the world's information. That has huge implications for privacy, communications, security, the way people behave, the way information is spread, censorship, how governments behave, and so forth. That's the primary narrative, I think, today. It changes education, it changes the way intellectual property works, it changes the way businesses work, it changes the way the media works, on and on and on. We're in the middle of that right now. The one that comes next is undoubtedly biology. That the same tools and techniques for combinatoric calculations, the kind of computer use analytically that we do today, when applied to biological systems, has an even greater impact. As we begin to say, we're going to take the analog world of biology, how genes work, how diseases work, put them in a digital framework, calculate for a while, do some machine learning on how things happen, we'll be able to not only help you become a better human being, but predict what's going to happen to you physically in terms of your health and so forth. Everything that we can do to build a model of how biology works, and in particular how the human brain works, how DNA works, how protein folding works, these sorts of things, is a serious step change for humanity. So all of the grand challenges, the sequencing of the human genome, there are now firms and foundations building databases of DNA to use for, to move to a model of individual diagnosis of disease. That literally you just press a button, with the sequences occurred and would tell you what's wrong. So the use of analytical tools in historically analog world is a very big change. What's happened in technology is that a new set of ultra powerful, ultra light, ultra conductive materials can now be manufactured at scale. And there's a revolution largely driven by a set of universities around new kinds of these manufacturing services that will change everything. So that revolution, plus the arrival of three-dimensional printing, where you can essentially build your own thing, means that during the rest of our lifetimes anyway, it'll be possible to build very interesting things from very interesting new materials, which have all sorts of new properties. We already know that there's a whole hobbyist area around buying these 3D printers for plastic. Well, if you can get these new materials, you can put them in the printers, and then over time, those printers will become capable of machining, mining, and producing these materials. It's certainly true that much of what we call innovation today is essentially routine or evolutionary innovation. I mean, cloud computing has been around for a long time, right? And it's getting better and better and better. After all, cloud computing is just mainframe computing in a different way, which is, boy. So the fact of the matter is these ideas have been around for a long time. Is that going to change the world? It makes it certainly better, but it's another step in the evolution of computer architecture. There's a new generation of user interface theory that says there should not be a user interface, that the information should just be around you. We have a product called Google Now, which is available on Android, which actually attempts, by watching what you're doing and with your permission and so forth, to make some suggestions. So it's now figured out roughly where I live and roughly where I work, and it tells me how long it takes me to get back and forth to the work. Sort of useful. I didn't ask it to do that. It figured out that I was going back and forth every day, and it said, oh, there's a traffic jam and so forth. Now, what are the limits of that technology? That's an artificial intelligence question. But it's highly useful for it to have made a suggestion that would be good. So I think we're going to go from these sort of command and control interfaces where you tell the computer, like a dog, bark. And instead the computer becomes much more of a friend. And a friend in the sense that the computer says, well, we kind of know what you care about. And again, you've all given it permission to do this. And it says, well, maybe you should do this or maybe you should do that. And the ultimate model is that the computer does what it does well, which is these complicated analytical needle and haystack problems, has perfect memory. And the humans do what we do well, which is judgment and having fun and thinking about things. And that the relationship is symbiotic. That the computer is making suggestions that are pretty good, they're pretty helpful, but that you're ultimately in charge. The race that's not being followed in the media is the race between humans and automation. And this race is run every day, and it's a very tough race. So when I go to the local convenience store, they replaced a low-wage worker by a machine to do my checkout. And that machine cost a great deal of money. And I'm sure it was a good business decision for them. So what happened to that low-wage worker? Well, their wages probably did not go up. They might have even gone down. Maybe they're on part of government assistance. So what's the solution for that low-wage worker? Better education. So in the race against automation, which is the race we're winning and which politicians never articulate, the answer is better education. Now, there are some other answers as well. For example, immigration of high-skilled workers. Rather than, we don't have to educate everybody in America, we can also get a few educated people from other countries and they'll help us out because they'll hire all these other people here in America. And again, people are slowly beginning to understand that we want, in any particular country, you want an unfair share of highly educated people in all industries, by the way, because it's in the race, they're the winners.
As we just heard, technology scene has been exploding in every aspect of life, from connected devices, social applications, to mobile applications and enterprise apps. But not every emerging technology, though, will alter the business or social landscape. Some do have the potential to disrupt the status quo, alter the way people live and work, and rearrange value pools. It is therefore critical that the business and policy leaders understand which technologies will matter to them and prepare accordingly. Disruptive technologies are advances that will transform life, businesses, and the global economy. Please welcome for this session Nikat Desai, Luaima Lahme, and Yusuf Wadi, and our session moderator, Aurora Belfridge. For the past 6 years, Aurora has been working with digital and social marketing and has co-founded the global gift card startup Wrap. For now, she is working on Your Middle East, which is a media platform that started as a grassroots movement with a mission to work for positive change in the Middle East and North Africa region.
Hi. Hi, guys. Disrupt. I hear that that's the buzzword of the day, and I know everyone's talking about it, but it's still my favorite buzzword. It's got such power in it. You can feel the movement. We're going to change how we do things. We're going to change society. And I think it's slightly ironic that we are here to discuss Disrupt, but we're given a very tight time schedule to do that. But I promise I will keep my time schedule and not disrupt that bit. But let's talk about a few of the buzzwords that are in the technology space. I heard a lovely stat the other day. 2020, 40 billion devices will be connected. I think that's huge. How many people are we on the Earth? 7? Let's do the math. That's like 6 devices per person that are connected. That's my refrigerator connected to my wallet, my mother connected to my diary. You get the drift. But that means there's a huge opportunity for us to do things. Our here is time and now, as they say, which is a lovely cliche. I have with me a distinguished panel. We're going to discuss a few of the other buzzwords in the space of disruptive technology. I think we're not only going to envision our future, we're going to talk about what's actually been happening and actually being built to make the future more disruptive. So, brilliant. I have, and I'm going to pronounce the names as good as I can, so please bear with me. I'm Swedish. So, Yusuf Wadi, the co-founder and the chief product officer for Arabia Weather. And then we have Nikat Desai, who is the co-founder of Punched, purchased by Google, and now you're within Google and Motorola Mobilia, right? Brilliant. And our third guest tonight is, and this one's the hard one, Loay Malay. Malahom. Ish? Did I do okay?
لؤي ملاحمة.
See, that's a lot better. Welcome. I wanted to start out before you guys have some presentations prepared for us today. But I was discussing the other day with a fellow entrepreneur, and also calls himself very disruptive, that we are called naive when we talk about disruptive. We're called a bit naive when we want to push the boundaries of what we want to do things. The investors in the investors meeting say, you're naive. How do you guys relate to being called naive? Please. We have handhelds.
Okay, everyone can hear me. So the question is, like, how do we feel being called naive?
Do you feel naive? And are you proud of it?
It's an interesting question. No one knows everything, and if you really want to know everything about something, that's nearly impossible. And the way the trend, the way the things are going nowadays is so fast that you cannot grasp everything that's going. But the smartest thing is trying to be ahead of the game and learning as fast as you can. So I honestly think that a lot of people say that you can call me naive, but at the end of the day, I'm the fastest learner out there, and that's what really matters.
Brilliant, love that. I want to be the fastest learner out there.
I don't mind being naive. That's where all the good ideas really come from. I think that what I would say is trust but verify. So try to take new ideas as openly as you can and then learn about them. That's probably the best thing you can do.
That's a very interesting question. Actually, I don't like also to look myself as naive. I like to think that I'm always focused, because the idea is always to create. When you look, it's not about creating startups, it's not about actually having a new business. It's about solving problems, solving real problems. So the word focus is much more in there.
Okay, well, I'm happy with that. We'll couple naive with focused, and we'll be proud of it when we disrupt and move the future. Okay, brilliant. So, Laura, would you like to start? And the podium is yours, and tell us about your business and how you've been disrupting in your space. We have the Grand Master of Ceremony in the back.
Can I have the slides, please, for 3D MENA? Yeah. So, hello, my name is Loay Malahme. I'm the co-founder and CEO of 3D MENA. I'll be talking to you about disruptive technology and how it's affecting our life, businesses, and the global economy, and of course in the context of 3D printing. So just to start and give myself a good base to start with, how many of you heard of 3D printing? All right, cool. And how many of you have used 3D printing either at home or as a service? All right, very small number. So before we dive into 3D printing, I would like to share, I would love also really to share some interesting stuff with you. In today's world, we are surrounded by many products that we can buy, and most, if not all of them, have been made with mass manufacturing. Super efficient, super effective, and capable of creating high complex product easily. But the problem is with these pictures, as you can see in this picture of cars and laptops, is that they all look the same. And unfortunately, we're not happy with that. So what we started to do is we started to customize, right? So whether with this amazing custom car or a little bit easier by adding skins to our laptops. And why we do that? We do that because we're human. We like to stand out. We like to show ourselves. We like to show our individuality. So, and this is extremely true because when it comes to the products that we care about. So how can we make that very easy and as well to make it as efficient as mass manufacturing? And the answer for that is 3D printing. It's really mind-blowing to hold one of your products in your hand, and 3D printing allows us to see the world differently and reimagine the objects around us. And when we launched our website last Sunday, after we get a seed investment from Oasis 500 3 months ago, we had two goals in mind. The first goal is to create disruptive solutions, and the second goal is to enable and bring high-quality 3D printing for creators, shoppers, and designers in the MENA region to enable them to make their ideas a reality on a daily basis. So as some of you know, today we can print in many materials like full color sandstone, ceramics, different types of metals, and even strong and flexible plastic. But what's the future with 3D printing materials? We're talking how about to create your own circuit board. Imagine if you can just upload your electronic design and we can print that for you. How about your own textiles? How about you create your own shoes? And even how about the carbon fiber as well? Extremely light and has mechanical properties that can resist heat and pressure. And also the 3D printer that print homes. Did you know that currently now this printer can print a 200 square meter home in 24 hours? And that's very, really disruptive. And talking about our second goal and also the disruptive technology, in the context of disruptive technology, this is the 3D printed prosthetics. How about an affordable prosthetic? Currently, did you know that it costs between $5,000 to $50,000 to build a prosthetic hand? Well, now this organization called Enabling the Future, which we are part from, are currently 3D printing a prosthetic hand at a cost of $20 or even less. And we've been doing that and trying to apply it here in Jordan by helping the war-torn communities from the Syrian refugees in the Zaatari camp and also the handicap in Jordan. And that's what I want to share to you about how really the 3D printing is disruptive, going to change our life and the mass manufacturing. Thank you.
Thank you. I have a question. So when we read in the media about 3D printing, it's obviously those extraordinary examples that we hear. So could you tell us a little about 3D printing of actual body parts and a kidney and stuff like that? How far away is that?
Actually, I would like to, this is a very interesting question. I would like to remind people with something called Gartner's hype curve, which is a graphical view that shows the maturity and adoption and the business application of a specific technologies. I recommend anyone who have interest in any technology that go and see, especially for 3D printing, let's say. The current curve for the 3D printing is basically in the productivity for the concept modeling, the 3D scanning, and the enterprise 3D printing. And maybe in the next 5 to 10 years, currently now you're gonna see the 3D printing bionics or biomedicals, but not in the real time now, because currently now we're focusing on the concept modeling, on the 3D scanning also, and maybe we can have a cell. It's called, you can have a DNA and you can make something out as a model, but not.
It's so inspiring. And just imagine the fact that you can replicate human tissue. I think that really pushes the boundaries of imagination.
Actually, I'm pretty sure that will be a lot more than that as well. Yeah.
Of course, it's a lot more than that. This is just the start. We're disruptive, right? This is everything that's crazy is just the first starting point of what we can achieve. Thank you for sharing what you guys are doing here from the region. Let's give him an applause. So, Joseph, I would love to hear what you're saying as well and talk about the business that you've created. One of the conversations that we've been having is about how do you create innovation in terms of how do you develop your team and your personnel and your skill set in order to be in a position where you can be disruptive. I think a lot of people talk about the ideas, but it's very much an organizational issue. And you guys are approaching it in a way that I find very fascinating, and I'd love for you to share that.
All right, thank you. The slides on, I guess?
Yes, slides on. Let's do it. How are we doing for time?
I'm not going to be using the podium. I just like to walk around when I speak, so please bear with me. I'm going to be talking about following the lead user to disrupting markets. How many here heard of the term lead users before? So basically, the lead user is the first set of users that are hidden somewhere, that are doing something to solve a problem they have. And just to talk about that, who is the lead user? The terminology or the definition is the lead users are those who are ahead of the market in a market trend, usually with high innovation incentive. I like calling them hackers, people desperate for a solution and workarounds. And I don't mean bad hackers, I mean the good hackers. The people that sit in the corner and they try to find a solution to a problem they have that they need to solve, and they don't care about how it gets to the world because it's their problem at this current moment. And normally these problems can become a big market trend. And when they do become a big market trend, that means it would lead, and the lead user is going to be the first person to take that market trend up into that curve you can see over there. So the lead user is going to start it off, early adopters will move in, and then the majority goes in, and then the bell-shaped graph starts falling back down. And to stay ahead of that curve, you always need to keep an eye on lead users. So, users are untapped potential source of innovation capable of leading a market revolution. This is quoted by the MIT. What they're trying to say is that the least used resource of innovation by companies and by people currently is the users themselves. Most of the startups and companies come out and it's like, I want to create a mobile application. It's going to look like this, and you better all use it. And if you don't use it, I'm not going to be happy. And this doesn't really work. So what you need to do is you have to sit there and look at the users that have a problem and they want to find weather, for example. How are they trying to get there? And the good example is Arabia Weather's geek community, and we like to call it the geek community around the weather system. What they did is they actually started watching our website and start notifying themselves through emails whenever the weather becomes extreme. And we found that there's a couple of lead users there. And these users were very interesting to watch. And that the second we started looking at the metrics and numbers, we understood that these people want the information being pushed to them rather than they wake up in the morning and getting up and getting it. So this is where we started implementing part of our mobile application strategy, where we get the weather implementation to them. Now, follow the lead users as they will keep you ahead of the disruptive curve. Now, a very good example I like talking about a lot is the Android hacker community versus what happened with iOS. iOS is still leading the market share in certain places. Android is starting to pick up really fast. And one of the main reasons Android is picking up faster is when iOS started, it was built perfectly. Believe it or not, when iOS started, they did not want to allow developers to create apps. And then they noticed that this is not going to work. But what Android did at this point is they gave you full flexibility. They gave hackers and developers the full stack to play with, and they kept on looking at them. It was like a little sandbox where they would play, they would watch, and pick up what makes sense and what is going to be implemented in the next releases. Now, after doing that, there's something that's really critical. It's product design. A lead user doesn't care how the product looks like. He solves it for his problem. And what I mean by he solves it for his own self is, let's imagine there is nothing called a can opener, and you give a can to the first lead user. He's going to try stones, screwdrivers, sticks, whatever it is to open that can. And he'll find a solution that looks very ugly. And this is where a product manager or a product person would go in and look at that thing and make it into a full-fledged product. And design is very critical, whatever the product is. If it was hard to use, it was not easy to use, and the design of it is not that friendly, it's going to fail. So PCs, for example, you mostly heard about the homebrew club in the 80s. That's where PCs started. And if you looked at the Altair, one of the oldest PCs, it didn't even have a screen. So until they started putting that product design into perspective, it would have made nothing. Now the last point is, we need to build reach. You have your product, you have your innovation, you have your lead user, and you're watching it. Now build reach fast. Because believe it or not, we're nearly 7 billion people on this earth, and those ideas are not a single person's idea. If do the math, the statistics behind it, your idea is probably not the only one out there. So you have to build that reach fast. If you have those lead users, you have a clear market, whether it's niche or massive, go there, push forward, and get your reach. Social media, for example, it grew faster than other products because it was incorporated in its own model, the concept of reach, so it was an advantage. So for example, when Facebook started, they actually had to build reach inside of their system, and it became something that became disruptive and grew very, very fast. And just the last note here is, if you really want to be disruptive, watch these lead users. You could be that lead user, but always make sure you're not dictating what you want to produce, and watch over what is being done in the shadows of these very innovative people, and that's where you will find innovation in general. Thank you.
Thank you, Joseph. I think it's a very interesting topic, and obviously, as an entrepreneur, you have to have the ear to the ground and listen to your users. Do you see yourself as a lead user?
In certain things, yes, and others, no. Even my partner is quite known in Jordan, Hamid al-Shakir. I see him as a lead user, and I watch over him because he's one of these people that is extremely geeky when it comes to weather, and I just watch his movements, and then you would know, okay, this is a thing that has interest, and then go from there. And we have a lot of people in our forums. We have our forum community, so it was made for also watching these trends between these geeks.
Because I think what's interesting, when you see a startup and an innovation that comes, a service, an application, potentially innovated by a lead user, what happens many times, and the ones that don't really succeed, is they stay there. So instead of following the next lead user and the next lead user, moving with the market, and then suddenly 6 months later they're super surprised, no one's using my application, because it becomes boring quite quickly and they haven't really grasped that.
This is a good example for that. High Five versus Facebook. High Five, they started in the right track. It grew really fast, and as you saw the curve, they got to the market trend, they started making market trend, and it just dropped back down because they weren't following the lead users, and that's where Facebook grew.
The main challenge here that I see it is that you have a conversation with your investors. You've pitched an idea. The investor's super happy with that idea. You go to market. But because you need to move it, you have internal conversations with the investors and media and users that kind of halts that movement.
Yeah, it's true, but I always say numbers talk.
Numbers talk. I love that. That's a tweet. Let's tweet that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So our final conversation is about, could we say the Internet of Things? Is that fair? Okay, we hate that word. Internet of Things is a buzzword that's slightly overused, but there's lots of opportunities in it. And I'm looking forward to hearing what you have to say. Actually, I have a question first. You say on your LinkedIn that you're doing 2014's biggest surprise within mobility. Could you give us a little snippet? We won't tell anyone.
That was related to my work at Motorola. I was on a team that was working on the smartwatch as well as a couple phones that came out. So if any of you are using the new Motorola phones, direct your complaints to me, please.
Thank you.
First of all, salam alaikum. Thank you very much for your time and presence here today. It's a pleasure to come from California and speak to such a wonderful and distinguished group of people. Today I'm going to talk a little bit about embedded computing for the last couple of years, and I'll explain what that means. I might be pressing the wrong button. Okay, there we go. The trouble, as I was thinking about what to talk about today, the trouble with talking about disruptive technologies is that doing so somehow implies that I can see them. And disruptive technologies tend to be surprising. This is why they're disruptive. Otherwise, you'd be like, well, there's that business that's going to end mine. That would be very obvious, right? And so one of the traps I don't want to fall into is saying that what I'm working on is the future, but I'd like to give you a couple views into what I've seen while working in technology in Silicon Valley. Before I got to Silicon Valley, I was studying a mix of mathematics and engineering at Berkeley. I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I was pretty sure I wanted to go into finance. In 2009, it turns out that was a terrible time to choose such a profession. And I basically couldn't find a job. And so I started a company that was eventually acquired by Google and integrated some of those services and went on to find other projects in the giant place that is Google. Google has a way of making even the largest ideas that we think about seem completely plausible and reasonable, sometimes even small. And they've taught me to think a lot larger than maybe I would have before. When they acquired Motorola in 2012, I was very excited to go and join that team. And the reason why is I was interested in building smartphones for the next 5 billion people. We were working on phones that cost $100 that have the capacity to connect any human being to the sum of all human knowledge through the internet. And we want to make those phones even cheaper. We want every single person to have a few. Today, I have a phone, Google Glass, my watch, that's 3. So I'm adding to her grand total in 2020. I'm doing my small part. In order for this world to work, however, the connection point is broadband internet. And what we're basically seeing around the world is an increase of connectivity and access. And so this map is from Ookla Networks. They take surveys on index of speeds of broadband internet. And here you'll see that the trend is up. The average around the world is something like 21.4 megs download. Here in Jordan, it's 4.6. Sophisticated devices like Google Glass or my smartwatch rely fundamentally on connectivity. And today we tether them with phones. But in the future, these computers, they'll be everywhere. They'll be embeddable. So you can think of wearable computers as one example of just an embedded computer. The computers that are in this place, the cameras, this microphone, these are all computers. And one day they will all be linked together and work unanimously, as we all hope and suspect them to do. But in order to do that, this network has to be built, and there has to be an appropriate infrastructure for all of these things to talk with one another. I want to give you an example of how these embeddable computers are actually changing people's lives. It's easy to say, oh, all these things one day will work for you, and that will somehow disrupt the way that we work. But what does that even mean? Again, this word is quite loaded. So let's talk about Google Glass. Google Glass, very interesting. Kind of awkward.
No, you look beautiful in your Google glasses.
It can be. But it's an example of one way that we're changing the way computers work and the way they look and where they sit, in this case in my face, on my face, to actually work for you. And this is going to happen everywhere. It's not just your mobile phones or Google Glass. It's about sensors going into your roads, into your walls. Everything will be connected, and computers will form and be formed to fit in them. And I guess this was very obvious. If you think about where computers were, think about mainframes. They used to take up rooms. And now they can fit in as small as your pocket, sometimes a lot smaller, depending on what government agencies you work for. I'd like to show you how computers like these are changing the world very specifically before I grow that out and show you how it works at a macro level. There's a website called Reddit, and they always remind you, remember the human. Here's a set of 4 pictures. These pictures were taken about 1 year and 10 months ago, and they were taken by me. And I'm actually in the hospital because I was diagnosed with cancer. And these are the 4 first photos that I took as I started a treatment called chemotherapy. And that was a very interesting experience. And the Google Glass team gave me a glass unit to try to understand what it's like to go through a serious medical complication with a computer like this. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about what I learned. These are my nurses. You can see that the photo that I've taken is very candid. It's a picture of me. Well, it's not a picture of me. It's me taking a picture of them. And there's no frame. They are concerned right now because they're wondering why my medications aren't working, and they're trying to figure out if I need to go to the hospital. Because when you're under chemotherapy, you have a high risk of quickly degrading in health and dying. It would have been different if you saw a photo of a person taking a photo of me looking at them. Here, I want you to see their anxiety, but not just see it, maybe feel what I was feeling as they looked at me. This is my uncle, Dr. Subhash Desai. He's a radiologist in Bombay. I was trying to figure out why glass was important, because at first it just seemed like something that caused too much attention. He was telling me about how surgeons in India are trying to get access to American surgeons who are videotaping their surgeries. You can see his colleague here primitively has put a GoPro on top of his head, and that he records his surgeries live so that he can put them on the internet for other surgeons around the world to quickly learn the latest and greatest techniques. This is something that frankly couldn't have happened just 5 years ago, 10 years ago. This is an example of how disruptive technologies change your life so much that you don't even know what life was like before. So one of the interesting things I got to do is prior to one of my surgeries, I got to see a YouTube video of the surgery I was going to get, a retroperipheral lymph node dissection, an 8-hour removal of your lymph nodes. So it's kind of gruesome. It was kind of weird. But can you imagine doing this just 5, 10 years ago? Now, this video can be made available to all surgeons to learn the best way to do this particular thing and save lives. And in the future, glass may provide even more interesting capabilities. If we put glass onto every surgeon's face, they can keep track of the vital signs of a person, and they will be more effective, saving more lives. So that's an example of a micro version of how computers that are embedded in your workflows will work. Is it out of batteries? Okay, there we go.
Yeah. Nika, just to let you know, we're going to have to wrap up in about a minute.
Okay. Going to speed through some stuff then that is not as interesting. Okay, let's talk about macro level computers. So MapQuest is a old mapping system that you could use back in the early 90s, and you could see a bunch of satellite data that they would give to you. Very interesting, right? Embeddable computers are going to be everywhere in cities, especially cities like Amman and growing and new and developing cities as well. Come on. Sorry.
Even the disruptive technology needs
I'm getting
batteries to work.
disrupted, exactly. And just to put that in perspective, this is an example of, this is supposed to be playing. Well, sorry, I'm getting disrupted. This is a picture of London, and this is supposed to be a GIF, and it's going to show you how it's lighting up. And as more embeddable computers go into countries like this, you'll be getting tons of data about traffic, the way cities grow, and how to plan them. The next London that's currently being built right now will be 10 times better than the current London, because we'll be better at understanding what information is coming out of these cities and how to better build them in efficient ways. And the key to that is a strong broadband network, which is on the backs of fiber.
Yeah, point outwards.
Sorry?
I think you want to point it outwards, but
I'm working on it.
can we scroll the slides from up?
Yeah, can you just
up top, please?
slide for me, please? Sorry about this.
I think that, though, is an interesting tweet while we have a little break, that the new London will be 10 times better than the existing London.
Right, and in order to do that, you need these connected devices to have a reliable broadband network. All advanced societies, Seoul in Korea, American cities, people that we admire and look to aspire towards, have strong broadband infrastructure systems. And here in Jordan, there is the capacity to use the money that we are getting from many places as well as our own to apply that to these infrastructure systems. So thank you very much for listening in and dealing with this with me. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd just like to conclude and say that for me this was a very inspiring session. I think we kicked off the day well, talked about disruptive. I feel that my brain has moved the boundaries a little, and I hope yours have too. If we are not the lead user, is that the term you used? If you're not the lead user, find the lead user to bring your business forward. Print stuff with 3D. Use the word Internet of Things, and think about how you can embed computers, etc., to move the space forward. I'm looking forward to the rest of the day. Thank you very much, and thank you.
So, and I mean, we talk about things related to biology, we talk about things related to the way we live our lives. The guys at Harvard, just a couple of weeks ago, cracked storage in DNA. They figured out a way to store 700 terabytes of data in 1 gram of DNA. Put that in context. If your desktop computer at home has a 1 terabyte hard disk, take 700 of those. The data on those will fit onto 1 gram of DNA. And that means with just a few drops of this stuff in the future, that's disruptive, that changes everything. That means you don't have to worry if your phone has 64 gigs or 128 gigs. You don't have to worry about how much storage it has in the first place. Think about that for a second. Think about how much data that means, how much storage that means. It's really phenomenal to think about the world that we're going to be living in very soon. So now we're going to be waiting just a few minutes while Their Majesties King Abdullah II and Queen Rania Al Abdullah arrive here in the auditorium. They are, I mean, we're very privileged to have them with us today, and many of you here in the room are well aware of the personal commitment of His Majesty King Abdullah II to the ICT sector here in Jordan and in the broader region. Alia, are we?
We are.
Okay, so we'll just be standing by for a couple of minutes here. Ladies and gentlemen, I have the privilege of welcoming Their Majesties King Abdullah II and Queen Rania Al Abdullah. Thank you, Your Majesties, and welcome.
Your Majesty, allow me to start by thanking you for graciously accepting this invitation and honoring us with your presence and the royal patronage of the MENA ICT Forum 2014. Your Majesty, as always, you honor us with your presence, and we are grateful for continued support and dedication to the Jordanian ICT industry as a driver of our nation's future progress. Your Majesty, Queen Rania, we are very honored with your presence.
Your Majesty, if you'll permit me to go back in time for just a few moments. It has been a long time since we last met at the MENA ICT Forum, but when we were last here, in the year 2010, October 10th, the King Hussein Business Park was really an idea in formation. And today, we now have close to 100 companies either operating here in the King Hussein Business Park or being incubated and set up to go off on their journeys. The whole concept of startup acceleration in Jordan was itself startup mode. And now we have more than 300 startups and a total of 600 companies in our tech sector going at full steam. In this edition of the MENA ICT Forum, we want to continue this conversation because we recognize that focusing on the process, these tangible, real-world steps that we are taking one at a time, will sustain and magnify the successes achieved today and help us reach our long-term goal.
To kickstart things off, we will begin with the opening plenary moderated by Jacques Bougan. Jacques is the director at the Brussels office of McKinsey & Company. Since joining McKinsey & Company in 1992, he worked at various sites and locations and leading over 600 projects, including the development of telecom, media and technology, TMT, and retailing services, and is a frequent speaker at worldwide conferences on media issues. And our speakers with him today are Alan Liu, Nami Zaringalan, and John Davis.
Majesties, Excellencies, MENA ICT Forum host and attendees, I'm obviously delighted to be with you in this beautiful country and beautiful Amman. I'm actually delighted and I'm quite surprised because I'm a consultant, I'm not an entrepreneur. And if you look a bit at me, you can see I'm much more closer to the middle age than the classical millennium. As my son used to say, you're not embedded in technologies. By the way, sometimes it's a bit too much. In June, there was a World Cup. And obviously I had to buy this new great TV. And my son went to the screen and tried to flip the screen. And said, Daddy, the TV is broken. So as you see, Apple can make a long way for people to embed in technologies, and we need to learn that. Now, this being said, what I would like to do today, obviously I'm surprised, but as I said, I'm delighted. And what I would like to do is to introduce the topic of the day, which is about disruptive technologies. Now, given the time that we have, I want to make sure that I leave enough time for the distinguished speakers that we have on the panel. I will be moderating the panel. And not only there are distinguished speakers, but obviously there are insiders. If we have people from, LinkedIn, as much as Intel and Truecaller. Those are people who know the inside out and have a lot of experience to share, hopefully in this panel. They will give you a few tips to continue ICT to flourish in the MENA region, and especially in Jordan. So can I go to the presentation, please? See where we have it. Okay. First thing, technology is versatile. We should start with that. I don't think this is the slide, so let me first introduce a bit of the topic itself. And again, if you're interested in the slide itself, I think there's going to be on the website, and it's originated for a major study we've done with different Nobel Prizes, including Robert Solow, about disruptive technologies. And disruptive technology itself is something much broader than ICT. And I would like to put 3 messages and then 3 questions to the panel. And I would like each of the panel members then to come and basically talk about this. Because at the end of the day, we are here to give you tips, not problems, but solutions to problems. Now, in the report Disruptive Technologies, we come from 3 facts. Fact number 1. 40 to 50% of the added growth in the future will come from technologies. Typically, if you want a country to grow, the added value will come from 3 sources. First one is capital accumulation. Second one is about labor accumulation. And the third one is actually technology, i.e. the way you combine capital, labor to produce much more efficiently, much more effectively outputs. The striking fact is that what we call the solar residual is today 40 to 50% of the total growth, and it's condemned to grow simply because the population growth, especially in countries like Western Europe, is actually starting to stop. So 50% has to come from new technologies. If you take a 10-year perspective, it's about, in volume term, about 8 to 10 trillion US dollars that needs to be brought by technology itself. Fact number 1. Fact number 2, technologies are not only helping the health and the growth of economies, it's obviously disruptive. That means that for 8 trillion of US value to be created, pretty much 25, i.e. 3 times, will be displaced. That's my second fact. And the second message, you possibly need to reallocate and disrupt to grow. Third message, we looked, as Eric Schmidt was saying in the first video that we have seen, the chairman of Google, that just plenty of technologies going on. In fact, we went to the scanning of these technologies and came to a conclusion that today, they are on promise pretty much more than 5,000 technology types, archetypes, that could make your day. We look at them and select them, and we select them across 4 basic variables. One is it going to be disruptive? 2, is it going to be big? 3, is it going to be big not only for the one that developed the technologies, but will it be big enough to create societal impact? And 4, is it going to happen us in the course of the next 5 to 10 years? In our report, we came with 12 technologies. And these 12 technology meets these 4 criteria. And here comes the 3 sub-facts that will lead to questions. Those technologies represent 50% of the 8 trillion potential we are talking. These technologies have 4. They are internet-based, Internet of Things, mobile internet. They are pretty much linked to engineering, like new materials, flexible materials. They are linked to biology, i.e. genomes, orientation. And 4, they can be linked to energy, i.e. smart energy storage, smart energy extractions. If you look at these 4 technologies, then comes these 4 archetypes of technology, then come the 4 questions. If we believe these technologies, this archetype, are so important for the future of the GDP growth of the globe, how can MENA benefit from it? Can you leapfrog these technologies? Can you benefit from that? My first question is a question that I will obviously bring to the panel. Second question, technology does not come just because there is an entrepreneur in a garage. That's a good myth to have. But like a myth, it takes to be tested at the phase of reality. And my second question is, how do we make sure that beside entrepreneur, we've got an ecosystem that will make this technology flourish and be absorbed into the economies, i.e., what's the relationship with R&D, what's the relationship or the benefit of having government to fund these technologies, et cetera, what are the enablers of these technologies? Second element. Third question, it's not only about the myth of making money that we need to talk about disruptive technologies. In fact, works we have done and works by academics which follow work made a very interesting finding, which is that if you look at every disruptive technologies on Earth, it comes, let's say, by the invention of travel, like the train or the plane. In fact, entrepreneurs get on average 6% of the total pool of revenue and profit they generate from the technology. Obviously, 6% of a very big market is still a lot of money, but that means the economy makes up 94% of the benefits. And here's my question. How do we make sure that technologies are there for the good of everyone? Not only people using it, not only people making money out of it, but for employment, for society, and the like. Here are my three questions to the panel. To summarize again, and each of you will present and possibly take one of them. It's about what is the social benefit, what is the ecosystem, and which one, if you were to give a tip, this country should take not only to benefit, but to leapfrog and shape the destiny of the regions. Thank you. I will ask, for instance, my first panel to come or just stay there and just talk. Thank you. Thank you.
So briefly, so my name's Alan Blue, co-founder of LinkedIn. Answering the first question about what MENA can do to take advantage of these new technologies. It's hard to believe. In 1997, I actually did my very first internet startup, and I actually came from a very different background. My training is, of all places, in the professional theater, and I used to design scenery and lighting and so forth for theater in San Francisco area. But I made the flip into technology because I happened to be in Silicon Valley at the time when these technologies were suddenly coming of age. That was only about 15, 20 years ago. So literally, the entire world of the consumer internet has grown up during that time. MENA is now in a position, and Jordan specifically, thanks to the great work of the ICT community and Your Majesty, MENA is in a position now to basically jump forward into these new technologies. Because basically, you've put the basic pieces in place which are required to be able to pursue them from day one. A lot of these technologies are brand new, and the innovation you do here in these technologies will be first in the world innovation, which is a great opportunity.
So I agree with you, Alan, and from my perspective, the mobile internet is one of the disruptive technologies that are, that is taking the world by storm. Billions of people are going to get online connected the first time on their smart device that they have. That's going to be their first interaction with all the knowledge that is out there. And the way we see it, or rather the way I see it, I'd like to make a comparison to where Sweden was 20, 30 years ago. Not saying that Jordan is there, but rather to see like how things evolve. In the 80s, the Swedish government tried to make computers more accessible to people. So they tried to get employers to take in computers and use them on their workplaces to create a more efficient society. The workforce didn't want to have the computers. They wanted to keep doing stuff with pen and paper. And the reason was because the technology wasn't there yet. I mean, the interfaces wasn't developed, and people shunned. They didn't want to have the computers there. 10 years later, in the 90s, mid-90s, the government did something again, trying to promote computers. This time, the interfaces and all the computer technology was ready for it. Plus, the government actually subsidized computers so that any average Joe could buy a computer and bring it home and play around with it. And this led to people in the workplaces to actually use computers and feel more comfortable using computers. They felt like they knew about computers, what they were doing, and so on. A couple of, I think the big reap of this, though the big gain, didn't come until 10 years later, when there was a whole generation of youth who actually grew up having these computers, powerful machines, accessible to them all the time, and had internet connection and could gain access to all this wealth and knowledge. So, I think that's one of the reasons why Sweden today is one of the countries which are extremely active in the IT world, and there's a lot of entrepreneurs and entrepreneurship going on there, a lot of engineers and so on. And I think, by looking at that, maybe we can see where we're heading. And when it comes to Jordan specifically, I believe Jordan is in a great position, both geopolitically and everything else, to bring those billions of people around in Africa and Asia, bring them online and kind of help in building these services that will bring people online, looking outside of only Jordan, just like Swedish entrepreneurs have been doing.
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to, Your Majesties, Your Excellencies, I'd like to make a comment, first of all, about the agenda here. It's this event, I go to many countries, and one of the biggest conversations there is the unemployment rate of the youth between, the 16 to 29-year-olds. They can be 30% or more. And one of the areas you're touching here in this event, it seems to be the heart of this event, is how do we use disruptive technologies to create the environment to employ the people that know the technologies and what they can do the best. They've grown up with them. And so I think that's absolutely the right theme. And I always look for, I wish there was a lot more of these, but I'm going to applaud everyone on that being the agenda of the event, particularly the organizers. Thank you so much for that. There's many disruptive technologies coming along, and I think maybe the best way I'll look at it is to compare to the video that Eric Schmidt showed earlier and look at those that can make a massive difference. If you look in the mobile internet area, that's due to make a massive difference. It's changed a lot of people's lives, and it's going to change more. I'll come back to that in a second. The Internet of Things is absolutely massive because it's where you get business benefit, it's where you get benefits on traffic flow, on safety, on climate, on business productivity. I'll talk about some of those tomorrow in the keynote. And then the cloud is where all of this comes together. So I'd like people to think about that. But I'll pick on one in particular, which is the mobile internet. And today, people always talk about there's 7 billion people or 7 billion unique phone numbers. But that's the number of people that make voice calls, or the number of SIMs that can make a voice call. If you look at the people on the internet, it's 3 billion unique users on the internet. That's less than half the population of the world, which leaves a lot of people out. And the developing economies, that number is much more than half of those people. And so as you look at techniques and capabilities in the mobile internet area, look at those 4 billion people and what they're going to need, and where is that volume opportunity, as Eric Schmidt spoke about. We've seen much lower cost devices in the way of PCs and tablets, and particularly cell phones. Broadband is going prepaid, so it gets much, much cheaper, and you can buy it as you have money and buy for small increments. And so that's happening. But then you have to look at what do the people need that are going to be that 4 billion new users. And so one big trend in the area I'm seeing surging is in the mobile payments. Large number of people are unbanked. They don't have banking systems, particularly countries in Africa, a number of the countries around this region. How do you use the mobile to become, I get the people banked? Because they need to get banked, and it's a very easy going forward way of doing it, but you need the local solutions, you need the local capabilities to be working with the big businesses, the regulation, and the innovators to put that together. So that's one kind of area. I look at areas in mobile where there's 70 million children don't attend school. Probably in a few countries they exist. But you see the first use of that area is, hey, I can learn to read and write a few words on a phone, and I get actually quite interested in the education side of it. You see it in healthcare where tablets and mobile internet is being increasingly used for collecting data, analyzing data, and sometimes reaching the people that have one simple device in there. So as you look at that as a disruption, I'd encourage people, think about your audience, think about the people that need to mobile pay, think about the people that need to take care of their healthcare, think about the people that need in their education, think about the farmers that need access to their marketplaces and how they will do that. And if you innovate around that area, that is where the mass market is, because there's the 4 billion people there on top of the massive, massive business opportunities. So if you look at it through that lens, I think that can follow an engine almost of education, innovation, entrepreneurs that can drive those capabilities that all of those people and businesses are going to need. Okay.
It sounds that the mobile internet is possibly the one that you want to pick. In terms of technologies, I have two questions. And by the way, you mentioned about the ecosystem of education and the like. Now, on the education side, obviously, my question will be to you, which is, on LinkedIn, you got all this profile. I'm quite sure you see a lot of talent flows and the like. And maybe you can tell us a bit more about what do you see? What is the talent that needs to be honest? What is the talent gaps? And what do we see coming out of what you have as a website? And my second question will be possibly to both of you on the other side, which is, it's good to talk about mobile internet. I think one of the learning that we had from the previous panel was about, it's not about one technology in particular. It's about how do you mix technology to create a new state of the world. So imagine mobile internet, Internet of Things, Google cars made up of new materials. I'm quite sure you will see a very different type of profile of cities and possibly traffic jam as we got in this morning to come to this place. So if we combine this, what do you see the world in 4 or 5 years? And what could be the confluence of technologies that's really going to make a difference? I'm quite sure that you have, in the entrepreneurial type of vision that you have, and obviously Intel as the seat around all this semiconductor power, you have this discussion. But let's first go to the first question, talent, education. What do you see and what should be a good tip for this region?
So we do see, so one of the things about LinkedIn, I'll talk a little about this later, as professionals become part of LinkedIn and they begin to use it in order to achieve their career goals, basically we're able to help them because we have a large number of people who are participating in the system. When looked at from the outside, LinkedIn has basically created a sort of massive collection of data about how the world's economy actually functions. So that's what you're referring to when it comes to the data that we're actually looking at. So our knowledge about the world of the economy is only growing, and we have a few insights that I can share now. And this is an area that we're investing in quite heavily at LinkedIn right now. So the first thing is that there are very obvious flows of technical talent, which are basically flowing into a handful of centers around the world. So there are so Seattle, San Francisco, 2 or 3 locations in India, a couple of locations in Europe. But basically, a lot of the technically trained individuals are actually moving to those places in order to take jobs. And that has to do with a whole suite of things, which whether it be governments trying to set it up to make that easy, whether it be basically industry already sort of installed there, the size of the companies that are actually involved. So even coming here to the business park and seeing Microsoft and a bunch of other names out front is already a magnet for attracting some of that training. I would also say that if you try to expand beyond the world of technology, all of the tools that we're talking about, all the ones that live here in the world that we're talking about around ICT, basically are individual human beings doing the work with the tool. So that means that the most important kind of educational investment you can make is in basic computer literacy, and then the availability of the technology, to what John was talking about. So the ability for someone to, say, get a better job through LinkedIn, or to do work to sell something through OpenSouk. Those types of opportunities only exist if you have access to the technology and you know how to use it. So those fundamental components are essential to making it work. It also builds up the collection of people who can be entrepreneurs. Everybody who uses one of these technologies becomes potentially an entrepreneur. It's actually one of the fascinating things, and why this particular industry, information communication technologies, is so ripe with innovation. It's that the tools of innovation are so cheap. Basically, all you need is a single computer, and you have all the tools you need in order to be able to innovate in the mobile internet, in software development, in the cloud. It's actually a fairly amazing thing. Broad-based computer literacy and access basically means potentially a whole country of entrepreneurs. The good thing is I know Your Majesty's actually been working on both of these things actively in the last few years, and I know you've made huge progress here.
Whoever.
Yeah, so I think the question was how do these things go together? It's not just
if you mix
one-off,
5 or 6
like
technology, what could be the landscape of benefits for this country?
Right. So just to continue on the same track for me, I'm a bit colored by working with Truecaller, where we work in all these regions and places where a lot of the information that we make accessible isn't accessible usually. So the way I see it is mobile internet is one type of plumbing. You need to have it there in order for the ecosystem to kind of work. And the same thing goes for Internet of Things and cloud computing and like smart computing, kind of creating algorithms that predict things and so on. They're kind of a plumbing that needs to be there for us to have a more efficient life. We won't know what's going to come out of it, though. Again, like looking back 10 years ago, I know that the government of Sweden didn't think that this was what was going to be the outcome of it for Sweden when they did this change. But they did it, and it brought good change, positive change. So I think that's really where I would try to focus. Personally, I'm very passionate about e-learning and e-health. And I think there's a couple of places where I've seen e-government happen successfully as well, which I think is going to contribute to all the cloud computing and creating more efficiency in all of our daily routines and lives, and take people out of a kind of poverty situation to giving them opportunities to explore the world, just like everyone in here is able to do.
Yeah. I'll take a slightly different tact on this one, and that's that if you look at the technologies, I think that the technologies are well understood by the people that touch them. The mobile areas are well understood, the Internet of Things, the cloud, all of the applications to medicine and healthcare, to climate and productivity of businesses. So all of those are well understood, I think. I think one of the things we have to look at is the mechanics of making that work in a country or in a region and using it so you can energize the people to create that capability. And I walk through an initiative that we've started up, I'll talk about this tomorrow, is about the education goes to innovation, goes to entrepreneurs. And you have to walk through those steps. And I think the education part of this is well understood in the region. I think it's extremely well done in the region. Jordan, by the way, is the only country in the world where every teacher has been through the 40 hours of training of Intel Teach. Need a pause on that. I just came from Egypt, where 600,000 teachers have actually been through that, which is about half the teachers in Egypt. That's a massive number. So that education piece, I think many of the foundations are there. We have a science and engineering foundation in the US where people go there and you have regional contests and country contests. Many of the countries in the region, most of them that are here, participate in that. Many of the prize winners have come from the region. 7 million children were touched by that last year. That's 16, 17-year-olds. And of the 7 million, it was about 50% boys and girls. And this is the math and science and medicine and those areas. So I think the mindset around that exists because every year the number of students that want to be part of that and the number of regions in your countries grows and grows and grows. It's the next pieces that I think we need to put some more effort in because I think that's where the payback comes from some of that investment. And I think it sounds like this. You look at encouraging that innovation, the makers, the developers, the software, the integrators, all of that. How do you train people, give them the basic training to do that? It isn't a classical education, it's the education and training in the area of applying these. And that's where I think Eric was right with the examples. Look at the, I need my mobile payments, the healthcare, the various areas. You have to look at the technologies and then how do I apply these to these big challenges that we have around the globe to help them. And that comes from, it comes from education, it comes from within, it comes from experiences in your life. But it's particularly critical we get the younger people trained and equipped to do that. And that's not easy. It needs a lot of focus of this event. And the second area is taking it into products and platforms. So we have people here that form companies. You've done that. And there's a mindset in this. Recognize that the startup companies that succeed, I don't know the exact numbers, but I bet there's 9 that fail for every 1 that succeeds. Maybe I'm somewhere in that region. That means that the average person could have failed on a company 5 times before they hit a wonderful company that's done well. And so you need a culture and a mindset around the venture capital that goes in that creation that said it's okay to not make this work the first time. And in Silicon Valley, they look at this and say, you're experienced. You had 2 or 3 failures. You know exactly how to do this. You know exactly what to do going forward. And I find in some other places, you fail in a business. It doesn't work. You know what to do next time. But it's not easy to get the funding and the support and the financial support, the business support to do this. You're more of a failure because you didn't succeed the first time around. And that mindset has to completely change as well, because again, if there's 9 that fail for every 1 that does magnificently well and creates many, many, many jobs in new industries, we have to have that mindset and capability. And that's in the entrepreneur side of it. We're a big venture capital company. We see that in the statistics. And the environment has to take care of that. So that isn't just the technology and the education, it's the financial industry, it's the policies that go along with that. And I think if we can address that as well, it will propel the region much, much ahead in terms of innovation and jobs creation.
In the spirit of time, we will close here, but I think you have the word, John. I think to me it's always a surprise to be with on a panel, because I started with a few questions about does technology matters? And I think the answer is yes, but I think you added 3 things, which I think should be possibly the architecture of the thinking for the rest of the days. One is that, you can have employment with technology. It's a complement, but it has to come with education on the job, and passion for using technologies. The second thing I'm learning is that technology is cheap is there, mobile internet is there. It's for us and for you to take, to use, or to lose. And the third thing that you have been adding at the end is obviously think about this as a win-win. It's all about education, development, infrastructure. And again, you have planted the seeds, so now is the time to challenge and think about the next S-curve as to how technology can really make a true difference in this region. Thank you.
Thank you to our panelists. Thank you, Alan. Thank you, Nami. Thank you, John, and our fine moderator, Jacques Bruguin. And so, as we conclude our opening session, I have the privilege of thanking Your Majesty King Abdullah II once again for giving us so generously of your time this morning and reminding us that this is our way forward, and this is the way for the region forward. We appreciate your gracious commitment, and Your Majesty Queen Rania Al Abdullah also for your presence today. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll ask you to remain in your seats as their Majesties leave the auditorium. Thank you.